Well, good morning and welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder, and this is BRN AM for Thursday, March 26th, 2020. And our top story today, we'll take a look at real estate sales during the coronavirus pandemic. And joining me now to discuss this and a lot more is Deidre Woolard. She is the editor for Million Acres. Deidre, welcome to the program.
Great, thank you.
So, obviously, what was a great, a decent real estate market, like everything else, has kind of been knocked down from this coronavirus and this epidemic and the substantive and the following or subsequent collapse in the markets, for lack of a better term. But why don't you break it down for us? How are you and the folks at Million Acres kind of seeing what's happening today?
Yes, well, obviously, it's quite a shift. Before this happened, we were looking at a relatively robust spring market. The biggest problem was lack of inventory. Prices from the NAR, the existing home sales data from February, prices were up 8%, the median price in February. And obviously, that is going to change a lot with March. It's too soon to know what's happening.
Yeah.
But right now, there is still a little bit of activity, but there are also agents, depending on the market, are on complete lockdown. Certainly, most of the major brands have paused open houses. Redfin, for example, has stopped open houses. So activity is really just almost at a near standstill.
And that's obviously disappointing. A lot of people are depending on selling their homes. The agents and their support staff are relying on the income, and it just kind of dominoes everywhere. I mean, there's not one aspect of the economy that's not impacted by this. When we, prior to this event, we had seen a tremendous number of refinances in the mortgage space. The Federal Reserve had, I think, lowered rates and precipitated many people going back and refinancing their loans. I mean, is it your perspective that just kind of slows down completely given everything that's going on?
Well, it's interesting. So the Mortgage Banker Association data from a couple of weeks ago, refis were up about 400%. And purchases,
wow.
And purchases were only up around 10 or 11%. So you weren't seeing the low interest rates sort of drive purchase activity as much. The interest rates have been a little bit all over the place the last couple of weeks just because of the cuts. So they've hit a new low and then they spiked up the last couple of weeks. So it's too soon to say right now. I think that we are going to see refinances. I think we're going to see a lot of home equity lines of credit, home equity loans. I think people are really going to try to figure out what value they can get from their houses to kind of put them in a good place for the next couple of months because they don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And one of the other...
Well, I'm sorry. I was going to say, I mean, people are probably saying, how do I survive, right? If you don't have working income, if they were laid off, if they have to cover their own expenses, how do you do that? The house, your property, your mortgage is usually your biggest asset outside of your retirement plan, if you even have one. To me, it just makes sense.
Well, and the other issue you have here, too, is just the logistics of loan transactions. So, for example, appraisals right now or home inspections, things like that. So they're looking at different ways to change the appraisal rules so that someone doesn't have to go inside the house. Another thing that's happening right now, there's an act, a remote notarization act being put forth in the U.S. Senate because only around half of states allow notarization remotely. So obviously that's a concern when people can't get face-to-face. We can't close loans or transact deals without certain notarization papers in different states.
What about transactions? Transactions that were, maybe there was a contract that was agreed upon and both parties were signing it, and now it's all contingent on the bank, right? And if I'm the bank, I mean, where do those transactions, you're kind of in mid-transaction, the bank has to approve you. I mean, do those get pushed aside? Did they get delayed? Were they delayed anyway because of the mortgage refis and all the other things that were going on? I mean, what's your perspective there?
I think it really depends. Certainly, different state real estate associations are putting together different what they call coronavirus addendums. So some of those are giving people an out if they sign a purchase agreement now. Can they get out if their situation changes in 30 days or 60 days? Different banks are putting together different rules. It really, right now, there's no one standard, which is why it can be so confusing for people that are sort of in the middle of a process.
Yeah, I would not personally. I think it would be very challenging to go through that, given everything, all the strains on people's balance sheets today, not knowing what's going to happen with your position, if you're employed, maybe even if you're working from home, what's happening with your company. I think there's a lot of unknowns. Deidre, when you look across the United States, I mean, we're both I think in Arlington, or you're in the Virginia area, and I'm in New York. But there have to be different areas of the country that are reacting differently. And we've seen different markets established regionally. What can you tell us about some of the regional markets and how they're impacted, even though some of the data probably isn't available? But what are you hearing from your contacts?
One of the things I think that's interesting is that Texas has hit a new record last month for sales. For home sales. And obviously the position is going to be a lot different now. One of the things that has me worried about parts of Texas, especially Houston, is the impact of energy companies. So obviously we've seen what's happening to oil prices. Energy companies are in crisis. I think it's important when we're looking at the different markets to see what the industries are that are supporting them. So for example, when you have markets that are heavily tourism dependent, so you're talking about somewhere like Florida, different parts of Florida are seeing a big impact already because people are all of a sudden not going to be buying properties for short-term rentals or not buying properties to rent out to people. So we see that sort of ripple effect happening based on what types of industries are the lead in different areas.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to take a quick break. When we come back, more with Deidre. We're gonna learn more about the real estate market and how it's reacting to this coronavirus epidemic and the downturn in the market. So stay tuned right here on BRN AM. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms, especially for the smaller businesses? I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network.
The windows on our homes, they protect us and the ones we love, but they do much more. At Renewal by Andersen, making your home more comfortable is at the center of every window we make. It's why we custom build our windows in America and install them in as little as 1 day. It's why we build our frames with exclusive Fibrex composite material that's 2 times stronger than vinyl. It's why our glass helps keep your home warmer in winter, cooler in summer, and quieter all year long. It's why we stand behind every window with a 20-year limited warranty. Why not help lower your energy costs while giving your home and family the best? Call 1-800-835-6525 to schedule a free in-home consultation. Buy one, get one at 40% off with this special offer. Plus, get special financing with no money down, no monthly payments, and no interest for 1 full year. Renewal by Andersen, the better way to a better window. Call 1-800-835-6525 now.
Welcome back. We're talking to Deidre Woolard. She is the editor for Million Acres, a real estate investing website. Deidre, thanks so much for sticking around this morning.
Thank you.
So you, obviously, Million Acres is a very prominent real estate website. First, let's check in. How is your team doing? I'm assuming, and I don't have to make this assumption, but I'm assuming they're all working remotely. They have previously did that. How are they doing in all this?
They're all doing really well. I'm really grateful to have a great team of writers. And one of the things that we're doing is we're just pulling together as many resources as we can. Our writers have been producing a lot of stories on what to do if you can't pay your mortgage, what to do if you can't pay your rent, what can you do if you're a landlord and you have tenants. So what we're really focused on right now is being a resource for people. One of the things I did over the weekend was take a look at all of the eviction moratoriums across the country. So different states and different cities are putting together executive orders from governors or from mayors that are basically putting a pause on evictions in courts.
That seems like a positive thing. It just seems to make sense. You don't want to displace people, especially when we're supposed to be self-distancing and staying at home. Deidre, how has technology played more of a role, not necessarily just for your team, but as it relates to these real estate agents who are still trying to sell properties? I can't imagine people having an open house today, right now, to sell a house, but they still want to move their house. So technology is probably playing a very important role with this.
Oh, absolutely. I'm hearing of FaceTime virtual tours. People are using Matterport, which is a 3D imaging system to do home tours. We're seeing a lot of agents just using technology, putting together emergency webinars for their clients and getting people together and talking. Since we can't be in person to talk, we have to talk remotely. Real estate associations are doing the same thing. They're holding their meetings virtually. So technology right now is huge for real estate. It's interesting, especially because real estate agents are such extroverts and communicators, and for them not being able to go out and make those connections, they're having to find other ways. So I'm just seeing a lot of activity through Zoom, through FaceTime, all over the place.
And I'm wondering if that Apple, I always wondered, with the new iPhone 10 and the augmented reality, I was wondering where that was going to really come into place. I didn't really see a lot of need for it in the traditional day-to-day, but maybe this is something where you can actually step into the home using this technology. It still won't have the smells and the sounds and everything, but I think it kind of comes close, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. I think that, I don't know if you've ever tried Matterport, but it's actually pretty interesting. It lets you explore the house in 3D, and so you can click and sort of look at the different corners of the house. It's not the same thing, but it's pretty good. And some people have bought homes sight unseen for years, but I think that will increase.
Yeah, and we're recording this show on a Tuesday morning, and as of right now, we don't know if the Senate and the House will pass. We're expecting a $2 trillion stimulus bill. But give us your perspective, Deidre, as it relates to the bill. I talked earlier in the week with Brian Graff, who runs the American Retirement Association, talking about some of the things in that bill about retirement saving and things that will incentivize and keep people saving. How about the real estate industry? How potentially could it be impacted by this Senate bill?
Well, I think that what we're looking at is any way that people can get a little relief on their mortgages. So Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae and the FHFA have already put out guidance both for individual loans and also for multifamily loans to give people a little bit of more time in paying their loans or getting a deferral so they don't have to pay now, but then payments are tacked on to the end of the mortgage. So I think that the government right now is really focused on anything they can do to provide people with that little peace of mind right now.
Yeah, I think that's that confidence and confidence. I don't know if that's a branded word, but I'm going to throw it out there.
That's a good word.
That's a good confidence. I think I probably took that from someone else, but that's really important. The market is driven off of perception, and very important. And I want to kind of end things on a very positive note, because right now we're in the midst of the 8th or 9th day of self-quarantining ourselves and social distancing. And, every day I watch the president's press conference on coronavirus to get the latest updates, or I check the CDC website. But we're going to come out of this at some point. It may not be in 15 days or in 8 days. It may not be in a month, but we're going to come out of this. What can people look forward to? Give us your perspective of how the real estate market could react. And I want to underscore the word could react, because we don't really know what's going to happen in the future.
Oh, we absolutely don't know, but I think it will be interesting to see what happens in terms of real estate investors. I know that a lot of investors have honestly had trouble buying. The house prices have been very high. So I think there are people looking for opportunities already in different markets. It's going to be a long haul here, but I think that people who, remain calm, have that confidence, are going to come out okay.
Yeah, I think that's my hope. We just got to kind of bridge that gap. That's why these stimulus packages are important. Getting people thinking positively, taking the steps necessary to distance themselves and protect from additional spread, especially with the people that have pre-existing conditions and are aged, mature. So I think that's certainly important. Last question, Deidre. I lied. I told you the last question was going to be the last question, but then no, this one's going to be the last question. A lot of the people had previously in the market looked at high-end sales as an indicator of future sales. But what can you tell us about the high-end real estate market? The $1 million homes or the multi-million-dollar homes. Is that still a market, or have those been kind of stagnated as well, given the economic circumstances?
I think it depends on the market. New York luxury did not have a good year in 2019. Was a little stronger going into this year, so a little uncertain there. Los Angeles has had a few massive record sales, $100 million sales over the last 6 months. Mm-hmm. So there is a lot of spec housing in Los Angeles. I actually used to live there, so I got to see some of that, and so not quite sure how that will play out, but the bottom line, I think, is that people still want to live in some of those cities, in Los Angeles, in California. I think you will still see some growth in Texas, particularly in Austin. I mentioned Houston before, but I think Austin is still strong. I think the tech centers will still be relatively strong.
Well, that's good. I hope we all have our fingers crossed, Deidre. Thanks so much for joining us this morning. Stay safe. Hope your team remains safe, and we look forward to having you on the program again very soon.
Great. Thank you so much.
And that wraps up this episode of BRN AM. Have a financial topic or someone of interest that you think we should talk to? Drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the news in retirement markets, technology, personal finance, and so much more, check out today's edition of The Morning Pulse. So until tomorrow, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.
Attention! The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services has officially authorized new benefits that Medicare Advantage plans may include. To get the benefits you deserve, you can call the Medicare Coverage Helpline.
Hi, I'm Joe Namath. If you're on Medicare, this is important information. I called the Medicare Coverage Helpline and they instantly looked up my coverage. In this one simple call, they offered to enroll me in a plan that includes rides to medical appointments, private home aides, doctors and nurses' visits by telephone, and even home-delivered meals. The plan also includes dental, vision, hearing, and prescription drug coverage, all at no additional cost.
Don't delay. Call to see if the new benefits are available in your area.
Call the number on your screen now. It's free.
Call 1-800-757-1451. That's 1-800-757-1451.